Hello, and welcome to this webinar on time mastery for entrepreneurs, and whether that's you as a business owner, an entrepreneur, a budding entrepreneur, or in business, working for somebody else at the moment, really doesn't matter. The point here is when we're focusing on time mastery, we are generally focusing on, what's gonna be a good fix for you as an individual. And this afternoon, I'm hoping to share, I guess, some insights, some challenge, some strategies. At the end, I've got a couple of things that I'm going to give you that will really help in terms of developing your time mastery. And the one things I appreciate is it's not easy. Sometimes it's pretty challenging. But why is it that I can sit here today, I guess, suggesting that, I can offer insights to time mastery. So let me give you a little bit of a background. Over the last 10, almost now 11 years, I have been a high performance business and executive coach. So I've worked with a lot of people that probably challenged in some of the ways that you might be challenged right now in terms of, managing their personal efficiencies. But the fact of the matter is that today, as a coach, I've got an air of expertise in that. Add to that 28 years of military service before that, and something in terms of time efficiency, time mastery was something that I guess for me has been drilled in. But we're not here to gloat over me being a self-licking lollipop. We're here to offer some insights and help you with regards to actually getting the most out of your time. So the first thing I want to talk about, and again, I make no apologies if this is something that you're going to be familiar with, but it's really, it really goes beyond a play on words. And the thing that we often hear people talk about is time management. And what I want to stress for you this afternoon is you're engaged in what we're going to talk about, and what I'm going to share with you is the number one rule of time management is simply this: there is no such thing as time management. And I know it's a play on words, but when you look at time management really suggests that you can manage time. And for that moment that you have right now, so the investment that you've got right now, once that time has passed, it's passed, and you can't get it back. You can't go back and revisit it. But what we can do is start to focus on self-management. And I'm going to allude to that throughout this afternoon. And I want you to take that as the first I guess, pearl of wisdom is as I go through some of the strategies, where I share with you some of the challenges, when you start to reflect on what those challenges are, do recognize the fact that got nothing to do with time, but everything to do with you and everything to do with how valuable it is. And I want you to think about this as we go through today. If what you want to achieve, whether that's a task, whether it's a goal, whether it's a project, whether it's a complete vision of where you're heading, if it's important enough, you'll find a way, or you'll find an excuse. And one of the challenges with time mastery is there are no end of excuses, especially in today's environment. You are bombarded with excuses. You probably all hold one of those excuses in your hand every day. A lot of people go to sleep with that excuse. So let's have a dive in and see how we can help unlock some of those opportunities for you all today. So what am I aiming to do today? Well, the first thing is I want to help with just a fuller understanding and comprehension of your own self-discipline. We're going to have a look at what time efficiency actually is. I'm going to share some techniques, and again, this is where you have your pen and paper with you. I will also share this presentation. I'll explain at the end how I'm going to do that. Delegation. One of the things that I'm very, very aware of is I suspect that some of you here are, team members, or you have your own teams, in which case, actually, how can you get better delegation or be better delegators in terms of the team dynamic? I'm going to challenge you with a bit of commitment in terms of how you can actually take yourself to that next step and what actions you can take. And then at the end, I've got a bit of a gift for you. You may or may not like it, but it is designed to take you out of your comfort zone and challenge you a little bit to actually get the results that you're looking for. Okay, so Sam is in the background moderating for us today. So if you have any questions, please drop them into the chat box and I'll address those questions as we go. It's always nice to know where you're all calling in from as well. So drop us in the chat box, where you are right now, in the UK or indeed globally. Some of you may be further afield than that. It's always pretty cool when you have somebody from outside of just the UK. Okay, so whilst you're having a look at that, let's first of all dive into what I would term is the first discipline of the day. Now, I wonder how many of you pass that first discipline of the day. And when we talk about that, it never ceases to amaze me that the vast majority of people, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that's all of you, but you can reflect on this, set their alarm for a certain time in the morning and then immediately press snooze. And so if you think about it in that respect, if you're setting your alarm for a reason, it's because you want to get up, whatever that productivity is, however you want to start the day. So what is it that challenges us in terms of actually then pressing snooze and giving ourselves that little bit of extra time? Now, this is something I do find quite amusing. I have had people tell me that they press and set their alarms so they can purposely go and press snooze, and I'm kind of like, okay, I don't quite get the context of that. And so I challenge often with passing that first discipline of the day. If you want to get up at a particular time, then set your alarm and get up at that time. And here's the interesting point: the difference between starting a day on a high and maybe starting the day where you feel that you've let yourself down right from the off is about 40 seconds. Swing your legs out of the side of the bed, and literally is about 40 seconds of uncomfortableness at worst, and then suddenly you're up and you're about. And what else does it do, passing that first discipline of the day? Well, it creates an established routine. There is so much scientific evidence out there that the early starters get so much more in terms of their productivity and what they're gaining. There's a real enhancement to self-discipline, and I can tell you from 28 years of being in the military, where it's something that you do day in, day out, that does make a difference. Interestingly as well, it actually does create more time. I'm pretty much an early bird myself, so we look to rise at 6 o'clock. I do my training, get myself sorted out. I have my breakfast. I'm in the office usually for around about 7:30, and it gives me that clear headspace to start the day in a really, really good place. And it's a routine. I follow that routine Monday to Friday, with some nuanced changes over the weekend, but generally speaking, that is my routine. And it does create more time, more efficiency. And in line with doing that, it also boosts my own personal productivity. So I feel that I'm more productive in terms of what I'm doing, and getting more out of it. And that feeling alone does have a significant impact. The interesting one as well, and again, there is evidence to support this, is it actually does improve mental health. The whole focus of getting up, filling your day. There is a great book out there called The Miracle Morning by Howard Elrod, and Howard talks about actually having a whole structure, how he breaks an hour up at the beginning of the day, and the various different things and disciplines that he brings into that day start and hinge on that hour. So that's the first thing, is it's kind of like, what does that look like for you? What is that initial discipline at first thing in the morning? How does that then set you off and preset the rest of the day? Now, there are other elements that we'll discuss as we go through in terms of bad habits. But I think if we master and we start to recognize mastering the first habit of the day, then you start to build a really solid foundation from which to develop and grow and move on. Okay, so the next bit is procrastination. and procrastination is a particular area of challenge for so many people. Now, hopefully this will work. Let's have a look. Let me know if you can hear this. If you can't hear it, we'll move on. Just pop it in the chat if you can hear it.
This morning I got up and got ready quickly because I had to get a lot of stuff done. I sat down at my desk to start getting my stuff done, and I spilled my coffee, so I got a sponge to clean it up, and I figured I'd take an extra minute to clean the whole desk because a clean desk would help me get my stuff done. When I was finished, I realized I hadn't eaten anything, and I didn't want to be hungry while I got my stuff done, so I went into the kitchen and I was out of cereal. When I got to the grocery store, I remembered a bunch of other crap I needed to get, and I figured I was already there, so I did my shopping for the week so I didn't have to worry about it while I got my stuff done. When I got home, I didn't feel like cereal anymore, and so I made an omelet and I did the dishes so I wouldn't have to do them after I got my stuff done, and then I went out to get some oil from the hardware store because my desk chair is kind of squeaky and I didn't want to be distracted by a squeaky chair while I got my stuff done. When I got back, it was getting kind of late, and I knew I wouldn't be able to get my stuff done today, so I started watching the Twilight Zone marathon on TV. I just have to make sure I get to bed early because I want to be well rested tomorrow so I can get my stuff done.
I truly hope you were able to hear that one, and I wonder how many of you were able to actually reflect in terms of, I guess, those levels of procrastination. I think that the point is that we all of us probably suffer from procrastination in one respect or another. It creates, almost this distraction that you'll be in the zone, or you'll feel as though you're moving towards the zone. Then something will pop up, and suddenly you start, doing something else other than what you started to do. And it's fascinating how your minds work. There's a whole series of, I guess, reasons behind it, and you can see some of them here in terms of the ideas that we have about how we can operate better, in terms of wasting our time. But the reality is that if something is important enough, you will find a way to do it. Otherwise, you'll find an excuse. So how do we overcome procrastination? Look in the chat, and I can see that the chat's working. Just take a moment and write a couple of suggestions as to how you can overcome procrastination, and maybe you've got some strategies that you have right now. So I like to be a little bit interactive on this. So what are the ideas that you have right now? And Ashley, by the way, welcome. I can see you're all over in West Virginia, United States. Great to have you here. So what have we got? What comes up from that? And whilst you're doing that, I'm just going to meander through some of these. The I'll do it later excuse is obviously one that often pops up and is always quite a challenging. And again, pushing something to the right and then continually pushing it to the right doesn't help. The interesting, working better under pressure. Now, I can tell you with certainty that to an extent, when you add pressure, all of us will work a little bit better. But there is a reality that exposure to prolonged pressure is no good for anybody. So this notion that we work better under pressure is it's a bit of a fallacy. It doesn't really exist. It is one of those areas where there's almost this made up thing in our minds that we feel that we can work better under pressure, and that's really not the case. Okay, so we're not seeing a great deal coming through on the chat. Again, please just fire it in there as we go. So overcoming the perils of procrastination. This is probably where some of you want to take a few notes and have an idea about getting better at this one. The common causes an unpleasant task. The task can seem to be overwhelming. And I know working with my clients that's something that often comes along. We don't prioritize in terms of what's really, really important. And fear of failure, in terms of actually that can create procrastination almost to the point where we let ourselves off the hook. Waiting for the right time or mood. Well, let's have a look at some of the solutions of how you can get over this one. In the first instance is break the task down into manageable chunks, so that we're not necessarily trying to do one thing in one hit, but actually we're trying to break that down into elements. That means that actually that now seems a little bit more achievable. What about develop a personal reward for completing it? Sometimes we don't recognize the fact that we are able to reward ourselves for the hard work that we're putting in. And that can be, even more challenging, because it then feels relentless in terms of just got to get this thing done, and I'm not actually getting anywhere. So what could be a reward? And I'll talk about that in a moment as well. So again, the other side of this one, sometimes good is enough. A lot of people strive for perfection, but actually, perfection could be something that is slightly more challenging to get to, and creates its own procrastination, because you never get to the end of where it is you want to get to. Acknowledging I guess these feelings, and then doing it anyway. So actually recognize that sometimes these challenges are going to present themselves, and when they present themselves, it may be that you've just got to take a moment. And the way that I think is the best way to do that is plan procrastination into your diary. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but the way our minds work, it's all about procrastination feeds us. It gives us a dopamine hit. You've probably all heard of that. The point here is, when we look at this in the context of that dopamine hit, if you don't control it, then before you know it, you'll have been on the infinite scroll on TikTok. 20 minutes will have passed and you'll kick yourself because you haven't finished the task or progressed the task to where it should be. Versus, give yourself 5 minutes of procrastination on your favorite social media channel when you hit a particular point, or at 20 minutes, and put an alarm in there to make sure that you can actually monitor that time that you're giving yourself to then get back to the task. When you control it, it starts to shift in terms of how you're able to progress in terms of your own personal time efficiencies. Okay, so the next bit I want to talk about is a context of what we call the time target, and I think that the time target is a really good way of starting to recognize how your time goes. And Ryan, thank you, by the way. I can see that obviously you're using I guess the mobile phone and modes on your mobile phone in order to help and support getting over procrastination, and that's a good use of a mobile phone, of a smartphone. Okay, so at the center is where we want to be, in the zone. And when we're in the zone, we are working on urgent but not important tasks. Now, let me just reiterate that. Not urgent, sorry, but important tasks. Now, the reason that we're working on things that are important but not urgent, generally speaking, is because when we're in the zone, we're able to get to a place where we're working on the important aspects. We're not allowing ourselves to work on things that are urgent. The reason they become urgent is because we didn't work on them when they were important. So if you think about this, in a week, 20% of that time is effectively an hour a day, or a day a week, that you're in the zone. Now, if you're a business owner or a manager or a leader, a department head, whatever that might be, when you start to look at it in that context, being in the zone is incredibly valuable. The challenge we have is, I suspect most of you spend a lot longer. And if you're on this call today, it's because you want to look at improving your time efficiency. You spend a lot of time in demand. Now, when we're in demand, that's generally because somebody else is taking your time, or somebody else's priority is taking your time. And where you end up is then working on urgent things and important. And the reason that they become urgent is because you're kind of like you're running out of time. And where you're racing around doing work for everybody else, and I generally term this as wearing the superhuman pants. You'll be in the superhero. It's not conducive to actually the efficiencies in your own process of the tasks and the goals that you seek to achieve. So the urgent and important, that means that you're in demand. Outside of demand, we then get to this place where we start down this avenue of procrastination and delusion. We become focused on things that are they seem urgent to us, but they're not important. We get deluded with things that are artificially important. Now, in the world of business, one of the things that I often reflect on in the world of business is that when you look at it in that fashion, you end up working on things that aren't going to be profitable to what you need to do in business. You end up working on things which are probably administrative, which have little or no effect when you should be working on something where your target customers, your clients are, ready and available to do business with you. But then we put things in which don't actually add any value in that respect, but they feel urgent. And I've got no doubt that administration has its place, and it is something that can be urgent, but it's not going to be something that is going to be you working in the zone. Now, outside of that, we end up with distractions, not urgent, not important. And this really is right in the middle of procrastination. This is picking up your phone. This is, a beep or a whistle or a ring goes off. And then actually, before you know it, you're looking at your phone to see what text message you had, who's liked a social media post. And that starts you down an avenue of really being challenged in terms of your time efficiency, because then you do the infinite scrolling. Before you know it, you've lost that time and you're not going to get it back. So when we're looking at this in the context of what we're doing right now, if you're focused on distractions, on delusion and in demand, then all you are doing is perpetuating now. Think about that for a moment. All you are doing is perpetuating now. For those in the context of being a business owner, you're just immersed in your business. Versus when we then start focusing on and working in the zone, what we are doing is we're then creating a future. We're able to develop a task-oriented drive towards where and what it is that we want to achieve. We're focusing on the things that will make a difference to the direction that your business is going. Now, remember, this is time mastery for entrepreneurs. So when you look at it in that respect, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in the thick of it, in it? Or do you want to be able to be on it, focusing, strategizing? And the biggest difference between that as an entrepreneur is, one, if you're focusing in it, you own a job. Or two, when you give your time to work on it and in the zone, you own a business. And that's a big, big difference. Now, whether that is someone who, that you're aspiring to entrepreneurship, or whether you are a business owner right now or a department head, the context is pretty much the same. So that's one of the challenges that we've got there in terms of the time target, and that's understanding where time efficiency comes from. But I want to take you through now. I want you to start recognizing the value that you add as a business owner within your business, or within your team, and it's what we call the skill will matrix. The skill will matrix. Now, the idea behind the skill will matrix is, and this is a task for you to do. That some of that is the technical stuff that you do, but likely there's going to be a chunk of that which is going to be the strategic focus, the direction, the planning, the goal setting, the looking at the objectives and the key results. All of those elements that are going to accelerate the growth of your business, help scale up the business from where you are now to where you want to get to. They reside in high will, high skill. What happens is we end up around the periphery areas, getting focused and sometimes getting caught up in the areas that don't fit that criteria. So at the very earliest point, write down in this quadrant all the jobs that you do and all the tasks and all the responsibility that you have as an entrepreneur and a business owner that really add value to the business. They actively propel the business forward. One of the ways that you can look at it is by writing down the phrase most valuable and profitable activity, MVP. They all reside up here. These are activities that actually transfer and transmit directly into business. They directly into profitability, into productivity. Now start to fill in the remainder of the matrix with the other jobs and responsibilities you have. And a classic example is when you get down into the low skill, low will, and there will be a handful of jobs that you've got, maybe even more. Now, the reality on that, when we identify what these jobs are, actually, there's two things that come out of it. One is a recruitment plan, because anybody in this particular area here, or any of the jobs that you're doing in this particular area here, are a prime place to then start in terms of recruitment. So what I mean by that is if you don't have anybody to do those jobs right now, then recruit somebody or use a third party to do that. But down here, there are low value jobs, and you're probably not valuing your time. A classic example with one of my clients a few years ago was, at the end of every day, he was going around to his offices and cleaning them. And it was probably taking him an additional hour or two on the end of every day because he wanted. And when we talked about it, we worked out that, well, how much does that work out as an hour then if we look at you as the business owner? And he worked it out, it's probably about £500 an hour. Okay, can you afford a cleaner? And the answer was quite simple. In the same context up here, where there are high skill but low willing, these might be financially driven. Again, it may well be getting a bookkeeper. I do the books myself, but it takes me 4 or 5 hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours. But I guarantee you, when you get a bookkeeper, it'll probably take them 30 to 40 minutes of an hour a week. And suddenly you gain all of that time back to focus up here in the top quadrant. Or there's those low willing jobs, the mundane work. It might be that you're somebody who is really focused in terms of actually getting out there and doing what it is you need to do, but actually the actual administration of those, the coordination of those, in which case it might be that, you get an executive assistant. Whatever those jobs are, this is a great exercise. After today, whilst the iron's still hot, strike, get a piece of paper, write this quadrant out and list as many of the jobs you can. And the point, as I said, that, from here, and then working down in this quadrant here, you've got an option to then look at 1, delegation, 2, a recruitment plan, 3, third-party support, whatever that might look like. And I guarantee one thing, when you find that time and release it, it's going to have a profound impact on you, your time, and your business direction. Okay, so I suggested that I'd go through some of the techniques that can actually directly help to actually improving your your efficiencies of time. So I'm going to share a couple that for me personally, I know are incredibly powerful, and ones that again I'm still using now, all these years later. The first one is this: at the end of every day, when you finish your day, the last 15 minutes is sharpening the axe for tomorrow. And what I mean by that is get really clear on what it is that you want to achieve tomorrow. Plan tomorrow today. Get a sheet of paper. I mean, I'll share a PDF with you at the end of the day, which is all around planning tomorrow today. But plan tomorrow today. And when you plan out tomorrow, go into some detail. So there's a really great book out there called Eat This Frog. I almost forgot it there for a moment, by Brian Tracy. And what Brian Tracy focuses on is about time efficiencies. But when he talks about eating the frog, if you think about it now, what are the 1 or 2 things right now that you're putting off, that you're not You keep pushing to the right. They cause procrastination. You know they're important, but I'm just not getting to them. Now, when we plan tomorrow today, what we do is at the very top of the sheet, we write down what the frog is you've got to eat. Now, you may have a whole host of different frogs to eat. So the idea being it's the most distasteful thing that you've got to do tomorrow. But, you know, actually, if I start my day and that's the first thing I do, that's going to have a massive impact. So each and every day we eat a frog. What are those distasteful things that you've got to do? What is it you've been pushing off to one side? What do you know that you've got to finish? And then you do that first thing. Now, if every day you do and go through eating one frog, then in the course of time, you're not going to have any of those things left behind, and you'll already start to vastly improve your efficiencies. Underneath that, what tasks directly contribute to your goals? You know, whether that's your, you know, your business plan goals, your quarterly goals, your weekly goal, whatever that might look like. What tasks do you need to do tomorrow that are going to directly contribute to that? And then you write that down. And then you've got telephone calls, email, communication tasks you're going to have tomorrow, and then any other. And if you break it down into those 4 areas, planning tomorrow today takes 15 minutes. You're going to have a significant impact in terms of actually your productivity day on day. The second one, use a default diary or a timetable or time blocking. All of those things are the same. Whatever that looks like for you, use a default diary and then go into, I use Outlook. So in our Outlook, I actually break down every single day into all of the blocks that I'm going to be undertaking. Now, I leave white space in the diary because I know things happen. You've got to move things around. So I have white space in the diary. But generally speaking, Mondays to Fridays, everything is blocked out and everything is planned in there. If you want a real tip and something to aim for going forward, I also am now in the place where we've got enough efficiencies in the business that I plan Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in their entirety. Mondays and Fridays, I actually leave with a much greater level of flexibility. And then as a business owner, what that means is that I've got the ability, one, to do any project work I need to do at the back end or the beginning of a week, or if I want to, I take a long weekend. And when you think about that in the context of being an entrepreneur, actually, it's not a bad thing to be in a position where you've got that level of time efficiency that you can have the choice to actually bring that project work in or actually indeed take some quality time for yourself. The next one is being militant with your time. So this goes back to the time zone. And I generally do mean this. You know, some people find this a lot easier than others. Some find it really, really challenging. But be really militant with your time. Really, really recognize the value of your time. Go back to that matrix again. And when you look at all those top, you know, tasks are in that top corner, they're the ones that you want to be really drilling into to make sure that you're really, you know, optimized in what you're doing. That's going to make a massive difference. So that level of militancy is not allowing other things to come in and start to railroad your time. Now, I caveat that with, I do know that you know, in business the proverbial hits the fan. But once we start to get really efficient and we have that shift in mindset, do you know what happens when those things happen? You're able to plan through those way more effectively. Learn to say no. Learn to say no. All too often, people will come, and I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in a little while when I talk about delegation, but all too often, there is an inability by people to say no, especially if you're the leader or the manager or you're the business owner, because you feel obligated to say yes to get involved with other things that aren't yours. Learn to say no. Okay, the next one's really interesting, and it really revolves around the movement of information. Now, one thing that I'm pretty certain of is each of you will absolutely have, I guess, a plethora of emails that are coming through, of messages, of text messages, of phone calls. So the 4 Ds. When you get anything come through, and again, if you now link this in with another strategy, so your default diary at prescribed times in the day, you're going to go, let's say for instance, you're going to go and check your emails. You're going to go and check your emails at those prescribed times. When you look at an email, make a very, very quick assessment of what it is. Am I going to do it? Now, if you're going to do it, there's a guy called David Allen out there, great book called Getting Things Done. He's the firm advocate of this. If you're going to do it and it takes 2 minutes, do it there and then. So if you've given yourself 30 minutes to go through your emails and you can, and it's a do it there and then, as long as it takes less than 2 minutes. I'll give you a top tip on answering emails, and something that if any of you that have had communication from me, and I know some of you on the call have, I use video emails now. So as I'm going through this do it, I don't write emails. And as long as I'm not sending, I don't send any angry emails, but as long as I'm sending something, I'm clear on what I need to do, I will record a video, and a video will portray way much more information and detail and feeling than me sitting there and writing the email out. And so I'll send a video email. So you can imagine now that when I go through my emails, actually sending video emails really does speed up the whole process. If I'm not going to do it now, then I can then defer it till later, which is one of the second D's, or I can delegate it. Can it be delegated to somebody else? And ultimately, it might be a delete. Now, I suspect many of you have got email boxes that are absolutely rammed to the hill, full of past emails. And there's a psychological feeling of artificial importance when you look at your inbox and you've got 1,000 different emails in there. Well, all I'll say is go get a zero inbox. Go get a zero inbox. Go through that inbox and delete the lot. A great additional rule on this one is the CC rule. How many emails are you CC'd into that you don't answer? Well, in Outlook, and I suspect in Google, you can actually set rules up. So go set a rule up that says any CC mail that comes in will send a mail back to the sender saying, I haven't read your CC email. If it's important enough for me, send it direct. And then the automation is that it sends that into an archive folder. And then the reality is you'll never go into that archive folder. It's really interesting, isn't it? We just seem to be in a place where CC emails are a thing. Well, just think about a conversation you're having with someone. Do you go and grab somebody from another office, bring them across whilst you're having a direct conversation with someone else and say, I don't want you to participate or say anything, but you just need to know I'm having this conversation? We don't do that. So CC is something that artificially takes up a lot of time. If the person's important enough, then CC them, or not CC them, but direct mail them. And if they're not, then don't CC, and then just educate your team on that. Okay, so prioritize the 80-20 rule. Pareto's rule is used on multiple different things, but here is really cool in terms of looking at what is priority. So what are the key priorities for you, and then 80-20 them. The ones that are 20% are going to be the ones that are going to get into your zone where you're going to be working on the important stuff. Set deadlines and work back. Again, this comes directly from my military days. So if I know that I've got a deadline for something to be in, and I'll go to that deadline, then I'll look and coordinate the activities that are going to get that particular task completed, working back from when I've got to have it done. And what that means is I'm not putting myself under any pressure of time to get it done. I can work with the time resource that I've got between now and the time that I've got to get it done, and then I can work back to get it in. Now, the reality here is more often than not, people just leave it and end up working with ground rush. So if you've got a task that you're doing, and you can actually take it to another level, you can take it to the level where if that's your deadline time, between that time and where you are now, break it down into thirds or quarter, and then either take 3/4 or 2/3 of that time to get what you need to do so it's ready. Then you're actually going to be way ahead of the game in terms of getting it done. Replace yourself. So go back to the quadrant I talked about, and where those jobs are that are low skill, low will, replace yourself. That's going to free up so much time. And the final one is stop wearing superhero pants. Stop feeling that you're going to be the fastest to do it. You can't rely on other people. I'll just do it myself. The moment that you recognize it, especially if you've got a team, that you're able to delegate to the team and actually give them the jobs that they need, then your life is going to change. Your efficiencies are going to really exaggerate. That leads on to a bit of focus now with regards to delegation. Now, I hope everyone is keeping up. Again, as we're going, I hope you're taking some notes here. Again, jump into the chat, any questions you've got, and I'll make sure that I can dive onto those and answer those questions as we go. Okay, so delegation. On this quadrant, again, it kind of links back into the skill will quadrant as well. The point here is when you've got somebody who's got high skill and high will in a particular area. So in your matrix, they may be low skill, low will jobs for yourself, but you've got somebody who's high skill and high will in that particular area of capability. Delegate the task. Now, when you delegate any task to somebody, make sure you delegate it through to its entirety. So don't just delegate to the next decision, because suddenly they come back and ask what's next. Delegate them in its complete entirety to what needs to be done. Now, when we start to work around the rest of this quadrant, you can see that actually, if you've got somebody who's low skill but high will, then just a bit of coaching, a bit of mentoring is going to help them along the way. If you've got somebody that's kind of like high skill but not really that willing, takes them out of their comfort zone a little bit, then you offer them the additional support and direction and clarity that they need. And if you've got somebody that's low will, low skill, then it's very directive. As long as they've got the capability to do that job, then you give them explicit detail of what they need to do, what resources they need, by when, and to what point they take that task. So again, not coming back to you having to make the decisions as you go. And hopefully that makes sense. Delegation is one of those areas, especially if you've got a team, that you will immediately uncover opportunity for yourself. And it's one of those key aspects that all too often is really done poorly. Okay, so let's just have a look at, I guess, some of the delegation tactics that you can use. Spend a couple of weeks of doing a time log and logging down everything that you do. Break your day down and keep a time log. In a week, you're going to know already that there are areas and focus there for you to delegate tasks. In 2 weeks, I guarantee that you're going to find and release quite a lot of your time. But you won't do it on a day-to-day basis. So doing a time log allows you to really get a very, very crystal clear picture of just where you're wasting time. It goes back to what I said right at the beginning. So doing a time log, and it's interesting, it's one of the very first things I do with anybody that I work with directly, is I will challenge them to spend a couple of weeks doing a time log. Look for things you want to do but don't need to do. And again, it's a really interesting one, because these are often some of those high will tasks that you've got, but they're maybe low skill, or they might even be high skill but low willing. Those tasks are ones to delegate. So again, you can start to see how that matrix can add an awful lot of impact with regards to how you can then start to delegate those tasks out. When you do this, and you've done your time log, when you start to find those tasks from the matrix that you've done, you're going to start to look for 3 to 5 hours per week. I would suggest that you would be able to clear a day or an hour a day. Now, let's look at it that way. If I say to you clear a day a week, you're kind of like, whoa, that's going to be pretty challenging. But if I turn around and say do an hour a day, an hour a day is 5 hours. That's pretty much a full day anyway. So if you're able to clear an hour of day of your schedule, that means that it's your time. You're in the zone. That's that 20% we were talking about, and suddenly your productivity will really start to shine through. And delegating is about letting go as much as you can to the team. Let me be clear, this isn't abdication. We're not abdicating any responsibility or anything that you do. We are delegating to make sure that actually what we're doing is leveraging your time, getting you into the zone. 20% is the start state. Actually, I've got business owners now that I'm working with that spend all of their time in the zone because their businesses are that optimized. They've built a team to deliver. Make sure when you delegate, and I think I just mentioned this, make sure when you delegate, you're not abdicating responsibility. So that could be something that could be quite one, disingenuous, and two, quite challenging for anybody that you're working with. So don't don't abdicate. Be very, very clear. And sometimes there might be a fine line between that, and I'll touch on it in just a moment as to why that might be the case. Train, assist, and measure, so that again, your team have got the skills and the qualities that you need to get the job done. And then going back to that point I talk about in terms of that fine line and abdication. In a team, 3 things that any one person wants in order to be the best version of them is autonomy, competence, and relationship. So they want to feel that they've got the ability to think on their feet. We've employed them for a reason. So they can think on their feet, and they've got a level of autonomy to make decisions to get a job done. So suddenly when you start delegating a task to them, that task you're delegating gives them that autonomy. The competence is you make sure that you're delegating the task to somebody that is competent in actually achieving, and getting through that task. Now, you still can train people, and you can get people to a point where they've got greater competence. That's great engagement in your team. And then that final piece is terms of autonomy and competence. What it also does is it builds solid relationships. You build solid relationships because people have more, you quite clearly have more trust in what they're doing, and you're able to help them along the way. And they feel more related because they're more, there's more contribution they're able to make to the team. So don't underestimate the impact that delegation can have. And the biggest point on this one is stop wearing the Superman pants or the Superwoman pants. Start to allow your team to step in there. Okay, so managing distractions, and that there are no shortage of distractions in terms of the things that get in the way. And I think if we were to start to look at that, and again, I challenge you just if you can, and you're able to get into the chat, drop us down some of the distractions that are clearly that you suffer from right now as I'm going through this, and we'll pick up on them in a moment. But what are those distractions that you're already familiar with? So when I look at this in terms of the distractions, the easiest way to manage distraction, the first one is putting routine in place. Set a routine that will allow you to follow a schedule. And that's kind of like I've said before in terms of the default diary or blocking time out. There's a really interesting point here, actually. And one of the things I'll say, even before I dive into the rest of these strategies, every single one of these strategies, and a whole host more, will work. They'll all work. The main focus on this is your discipline. Put the discipline in place to make sure that actually whatever those distractions are, that you're you're able to actually manage those distractions and have the discipline to get beyond those distractions. That's kind of like the interesting point here. That's what makes a big difference in terms of getting through those distractions. So routine. The second one is habit stacking, and this might be something that you may not be familiar with, but there's a great book out there called Atomic Habits by a guy called James Clear. And one of the premises that James talks about is the ability to get through situations, to build routine, to build structure through habit stacking. So let me give you an example. You want to go out and start running, and this is just a very easy example to use. And so to do that, you want to get up earlier in order to have enough time in the morning to go do the fitness, to go do the running. So to stack the habit, okay, so at the moment, you've probably got your phone. That's what you're using to wake you up in the morning. And it's right by your bed, so you can turn it off straight away. So now we start to think to ourselves, right, how do I stack this habit that's going to help me to get over, get out of bed in that first instance? Well, I'm going to put my phone across the other side of the room. I'm going to turn it up to a very annoying alarm. The phone gets off, and I have to get out of my bed to go over to turn the alarm off. Where I turn the alarm off, my trainers and my sports kit are right next to that. So I've got to put my trainers and sports kit on. And then next to that is the water bottle. So I'm now going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to fill up with water. And I go to the bathroom and I can get myself ready to go. Then I'm going downstairs and I'm off out on the run. So we just stack habits in such a way that one leads to the next, to the next, to the next. So there are multiple times during the day where you'll be able to actually put habit stacking in place to get the most out of your own time. Reasonable time allocation for tasks. I can't tell you how many times I see people that will put time in a diary to do something and massively underestimate how long it will take. And then suddenly they've lost a day or they've lost an afternoon. When you're putting time in, so again, this works really with your default diary with time blocking. When you're doing that, get really, really clear on how long a time is going to take. And it might be that you add a quarter to it or add a third of the time to it. But don't just estimate a time on what you think it's going to be unless you've got real examples, life examples of what that looks like. Turn off the alerts. Now, on here, I dare say that there are alerts. I'm obviously doing this for you right now. So the one thing that I do is I put my phone on airplane mode. So if you're in the zone, put your phone on airplane mode. Do you have alerts pop up on your computer screen which tell you an email is coming? Turn them off. Take control. Turn the bells and whistles off so that you're not being disturbed. You're not having an alert pop up and tell you someone's just liked a particular thing you're doing. But rather what we're doing is getting really, really focused on actually taking command of your time, being militant about that time. Turn all of the alerts off. Do you know the other thing? And again, I often do this with this one. If I'm working in the zone and I put this on airplane mode, I've done it before where it'll be the morning, I'll put it on airplane mode, and by the end of the day, I've realized my phone's been on airplane mode all day. Has it made any difference? No. If somebody wants to get in touch with you and it's urgent, they will find a way. If somebody wants to get in touch with you and you've just got every bell and whistle on there, they'll find a way for everything they need to get in touch with you for. Okay, so remove distractions. And again, this works quite nicely actually with redesigning your office and your workspace. And one of the ways to look at that is my office where I am right now actually faces a wall. I don't face the door. Most offices that I talk, when I talk to the business owners, they face the door. Again, this one links into the open door policy. So the moment somebody comes in, you're working on something, what do? You look up. The moment you look up, you catch their eye contact. You've just given them permission to come and interrupt you. They interrupt your time. You're now no longer in the zone. You're now saying yes to the stuff that you should be saying no to. So actually remove all of that by having your desk or your workstation so it's not facing a door or facing somebody else. Now, I know that's not achievable in every single working environment, especially if you work in an open office. But if you can bring in the rules of the game, that'll actually help you to actually demonstrate to people when you're working in the zone not to be disturbed. I had one client that they brought some fun to it. They wore hats. If they were working on something that they couldn't be disturbed on, they put a hat on, and that was enough. That actually people. The only rule they had is you couldn't come in the morning and put a hat on all day long. You can probably imagine that would be a little bit unfair. An accountability coach. I mean, kind of like, that's the business that I'm in. Who holds you accountable? And it could be a work colleague, but have a think about what that might look like as well. Okay, so dive into the chat. Just before I offer some insights to what I've got for you at the back end of today, what we're going to send you out. Who's got any questions? And let us know if there's any questions at all with regards to anything that we've chatted about today. And again, if you well, I suppose if you have got access to the chat, that would be really, really useful. And I know it's an hour long, this webinar, so it's pretty fast and furious in terms of what we go through. But the idea being is to give you more than enough to walk away with. Now, the interesting point as well is that, what I'm going to offer you, actually, I take all of this information and I offer it you in a very, very comprehensive way that over the next 30 days, if you want to make a difference to your time mastery, if you want to do better, then you're going to be able to, and I will show you how in just a moment. But yeah, I don't think oh, here we go. We've got a question coming through. Yes, there will be the we're going to send the PDFs out on this one as well. And I do believe there's also a transcript that will follow this one as well. So I'll absolutely share that with you. No problem at all. Any other questions with regards to anything we've chatted about today? Whilst we're waiting for those questions to come through, I'll just share something else with you. So it might be a little bit difficult to see depending on if you're a phone or a big screen. But every month we've got a whole 12 months worth of webinars that we're sharing. So I think our next one is Unlocking Business Potential, Proven Strategies for Growth. That's in March. We've got Sales Mastery in April. Revolutionize Your Marketing in May. Profitability in June, and you can see through the rest of the year. So if you're all happy, we'll make sure we keep you up to date with those and drop you a reminder, and you'd be more than welcome to come along and join us for those. So I can't see any questions coming in, and I can't see Sam's not nudging me in any way. So what I'll do is let's bring this one to a close today. So if it's okay, what we're going to do is we're going to send you all out a book, an ebook, and the ebook is the 30-day challenge to beat the clock. It basically is a step-by-step, day-by-day way to build up. If you follow this challenge over the next 30 days, I guarantee that your time mastery will go through the ceiling. You will get to a point where you will be a time guru. You'll really value your time, and you'll get a really good insight as to how you can just do so much better. So if that's okay with everybody, we'll send that out to you all, and then you'll have that as a guideline and a guidance system process, if you will, to take you through the next 30 days. So 30-day challenge to beat the clock. Also going to send out the presentation with you. So the presentation in its entirety will be available on the website. So if you wanted to, you'll be able to go back and have a read of it, or indeed on our YouTube channel. So again, all of that's going to go live in the next couple of days. So it's available for you to have a look at, or indeed share with your teammates as well. So if you want to share it with somebody to share those ideas, then you'll be more than welcome to do just that. I'll also share out a very simple PDF on Plan Tomorrow Today. So I talked about Brian Tracy and Eat the Frog. So you'll have what frog are you eating tomorrow, what tasks contribute to the goal, what are you doing communication wise, and what are you doing on other tasks. So that will be available for you as well. And outside of that, I think there is the point in terms of complementary coaching. So my idea is that during the 30-day challenge, I'm actually going to come and drop you a couple of notes just to see how you're getting on, see how that level of engagement is going. So James, here we go. One thing that has helped my time management has applying the principles for developing routines for fun and rewarding personal development first, then applying them to business. 100%, James. I totally agree with that. And I think when we talked right at the beginning, I said about recognizing and rewarding yourself. That's absolutely the key. It just triggers your mind, and actually this stuff becomes good fun to do, rather than challenging. And I think if you're always working towards knowing that there is a reward out there for yourself, that's not a bad place to be. Listen, folks, I hope that's been really useful this afternoon. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate but to drop us an email. Again, all the contact details can be found on the website. We will, in the next 24 hours, send out bits and pieces to you. And really challenge and hope that you jump onto the 30-day challenge and see if we can't help you become time masters of your own right. But unless there's any other questions to dive into, that's been really good having you come along today. Really useful. We've got one here. Chris Williamson on getting things done. Great video to share. Thanks for that one, Ryan. We'll grab that link and we'll share that one with everybody as well. So that's really cool. Thank you very much. And Ashley, one of my struggles is knowing I have so much to do but can't find the motivation to get it done. It gets overwhelming. Ashley, I think it goes back to one of the things I said right at the beginning. Any of the strategies I've talked about today will work, One, I think if it's important enough for you, you'll find a way. Otherwise, you will end up finding an excuse. And sometimes overwhelm can be just driven through that level of kind of like not seeing the wood for the trees. Put some structure in, put some routine in, create a default diary, and recognize, when I talked about the tactics and the strategies you can use, recognize that when you're planning tasks, break them into bite-sized chunks, and then be reasonable about the time that you apply to get those jobs done, and then add 25% to it. Combine that with planning tomorrow today. So if for instance, tomorrow, actually, you've got a fairly busy schedule, then when you finish today, and I appreciate, I don't know what time it is over in the US at the moment, you may have the full day ahead of you yet. When you finish today, plan tomorrow. And in the top where it's that frog you've got to eat, what's the one thing tomorrow that you need to do that you've been putting off? And if you've got lots of things that you've been putting off through that overwhelm, then what's the biggest thing tomorrow that you need to do to complete? And if you do that over a week, 2 weeks, you'll suddenly start to get on top of that overwhelm. But create routine, be reasonable about time planning in terms of how long it's going to take you to get the tasks done. Remove the distractions. Go back and watch this again once we post it. And I think what you'll find is there are certain little aspects there that are going to really, really help you. The 30-day challenge, Ashley, I think is going to be really, really good to help you as well. So I do strongly recommend you jump into that, and we'll have that in the email to you within 24 hours. So unless there are any other questions, thank you all so much for joining me today. And anything that I can help with, or any questions that you may have that arise from this, then please don't hesitate then to drop me a message. Do please jump onto my LinkedIn, connect in with me if you haven't already. And if I can be cheeky, one thing's always great to get on my LinkedIn, if you don't mind, if this has been of some value, is a short testimonial, just of the value that you've taken from today. In the meantime, I think that's us. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and time efficiency starts now.